He had an aneurysm, which made him fall. What I wanted to talk about is how many feelings it triggered in me. And I was comfortable with it. And I was noticing everyone around was doing all the stuff.
I find that really fascinating when there's an emergency. It's really interesting to look at how they respond. Between stimulus and response, there's a space.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't really experience a space.
Mm-hmm.
So like on the pickleball incident, where the man collapses, most people don't have any space to either feel or breathe or be with themselves or take a moment to see what's the possibility here, what's the opening that I could take.
The body is the anchor, yes? Like the
Yes.
beating and the experience in my chest and feeling what was happening in my gut was probably what I was doing. Well, hello, Katie.
Hello, Sophie.
I have missed you. How are you?
Oh, well, I've just missed seeing you, and it's always wonderful whenever we get together, and so great to continue our conversations.
I love that. Something did happen this week that I was like, I can't wait to get Katie's hands on it. Well, heart, well, mind. So it starts with something that was not super joyful, where someone fell on our court, at the pickleball court, and is probably going to pass.
Oh my gosh. So they
really
collapsed, it sounds like.
Yes, he fell. He had an aneurysm, which made him fall. And not that I don't want to talk much about it, but what I wanted to talk about is how many feelings it triggered in me. And I was comfortable with it. And I was noticing everyone around was doing all the stuff. So some of them were into doing, like, let's fix the thing and do the thing. The other one was like pretending it didn't happen and was just like walking around talking like a little butterfly, like nothing had happened. And this other one was more about one left, just like literally just walked away. And the other one was like, well, we came to play. We should play. I mean, it was just like a ceremony of like not being able to feel feelings, not know what to do with their feelings. I mean, it was just like this really crazy thing. But then that's the part that really I wanted to discuss even more is I came home and I just finished my landscaping and it was so beautiful. And so now I'm like submersed in this joyful beauty and joy. And I'm like, I'm like a wreck from feeling so much. And so I was curious to like, is there such a thing as like proper amount of feeling, accompanying myself out of feelings, letting myself feel it all, and then just be like a bubble of like all that stuff. And I just was really curious, like because they were both big. I think that's what it was. It was one after the other. They were kind of both a little bit, big.
Yes. Well, one of the things I wanted to just underline as you were speaking to me about people's reactions, I was hearing all of these different fear responses. So somebody froze, somebody fainted.
Oh, yes.
Two people fled. And so I'm wondering, it sounds like you faced into it.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, one of the big reasons why people don't face into things is because it activates then all of your feelings and sensations and responses, and people don't know what to do with that. And my sense is that feelings, emotions, but also body sensations is still very difficult for us culturally. That there's still very much a kind of keep it together, don't get hysterical, don't. And also I saw people jumping into what I would call the triangle. So you had a whole bunch of heroes who showed up.
Yes.
And probably some other people who went victim, like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. And I wonder, I'm imagining that there was probably also some judgment, maybe unspoken, where there's some people went villain, like,
Well, the guy who was like, I came here to play. So I was like, I'm sorry, this guy is possibly.
I'm sorry, this guy is dying in the middle of your playing time. Yeah. So the villain moves. And so I find that really fascinating when there's an emergency. It's really interesting to look at how they respond. And what it was reminding me of also, can I do a little segue before we go into
Please, take it
Yeah.
anywhere.
Because what it was reminding me of is years and years ago, when Gay and I lived in Colorado, and we were going to do a lot of workshops in Northern California. We stayed with some people at their, lovely home in the middle of Palo Alto, and very ritzy place. And we had gone out and came back in the evening, and they weren't home. And we walked in the door, and the alarm went off.
Okay.
Because they hadn't told us about the alarm. And so this was hilarious. So Gay immediately stands there and starts telling the microscopic truth. He's like, "Oh, I don't know what to do. Oh, I'm feeling really anxious. Oh, and
He's just describing what he's feeling.
yes, he's describing what he's feeling. And I immediately go into my engineering genes mode, and I'm going for where I'm pretty sure they're going to have the code, that it'll be stored somewhere near the phone. And so I'm just going right for it. I didn't feel at all anxious. I just got
You were
really
on a mission.
focused.
You were
I
like,
was on a mission. And so by the time the emergency responders had come to the door, I had the code, and Gay was still talking about
I was still walking through. Now I'm feeling a little reassured.
yeah. It was very interesting to see what each of us revert to when there's an emergency. So for me, in emergencies, I get very calm and focused, and so I think I'd probably go into what can I do to fix this?
Like helper, not
Yeah,
hero.
go more
But
into, it's kind of a modified helper. And Gay just
just like, this is me having feelings. But I love that. So before we switch to the other experience, which was so joyful, which possibly was, had a little bit of guilt. Like, how can I be so joyful when I just witnessed, this person and the wife was like that the entire time. And if you guys don't see the visual, she was like she was her hands in front of her face, and she stayed like that for like 20 minutes.
Okay, so she was the one who froze.
She froze.
So very, very interesting to see how, and nobody can talk anybody out of fear. So for me, if I were there, I probably would have been moving. So the first thing that really helps people to unfreeze and to unflee is to let a little movement. And that's what the fear melters are for, that we've developed. But also just any kind of movement will start getting you located in your body again. But I think it's very fascinating. It also happens when somebody has died and the family gathers. And the family responses, they all go into their fear responses that, of course, are all unresolved. And then that's where a lot of the family drama comes up, because people are in fear and not being able to navigate that.
Which, when a situation like death or watching someone, possibly being in the process of dying, you'd think it activates it's pretty 0 to 60. Like,
it definitely does. And the thing that I'm realizing from what you're saying also is that this is another situation of being able to encompass opposites. So you have this, someone's dying or, having a big medical emergency, and the beauty of your environment that you've been investing in and that you've been co-creating. And I think I really want to give us all permission to have both. I think we really don't let ourselves feel joyful as much as we could, because there's so much suffering going on, in so many places for so many different reasons.
One other thing that happened on the court that also triggered a wow, is I had a conversation the day before with a client I was talking to, and we were talking about that, feeling our feelings and being able to allow ourselves in like multiple experiences, and the complexity sometimes of multiple layers. You can be happy about this and sad about that, and you can even be happy and sad about the same thing.
Yes.
And that's actually okay. But we brought up the Viktor Frankl in Search of Meaning, the fact that he really was able to find beautiful things in, obviously quite such a horrific of the concentration camps. And we both landed in the conversation that had to do with what would we do? Like if I was as good of a human I think I am, if I was in a situation where really my life was at risk, I was hungry, I couldn't, I mean, comfort, fear was all gone, like all of it was
Yes.
activated. Would I share my bread with this if I didn't have so much? Would I be the person who goes and try to help or do something, that I would really like myself, you know? Which I know is kind of a bizarre train of thought, but I mean, hopefully in this lifetime, won't be in a situation where, although maybe I will, I don't know, but let's plan that I'm not. So what happened when I got to the court, the person had already fallen. There was already the ambulance, the thing was already very, very high drama. This one woman who I don't know, not the wife, I don't know her very well. She saw me and there were like maybe 10, 15 of us. She ran in my arms without so much as I was in the middle of other people, but somehow my energy was, in my head, I thought that is my version of sharing my bread, that somehow I carry
Yes.
myself in a loving way, in an open way that she knew, even if she didn't know me very well, she would be embraced and she would be, because obviously she was there. She witnessed the fall. She didn't know what to do with herself. And so that felt good, not from a hero place, I don't think, but it just felt like, without carrying a banner of like, hey,
Well, it wasn't hero because you were being, you were
yes,
presencing and you were fully presencing. And
yeah,
to me, I think that's one of the biggest gifts that we can give to the people around us is if I'm fully, in myself and I'm spread out in myself and I'm flowing with energy, of course, I'm going to be welcoming, whatever connection is wanting to happen. And, so my sense is that you were demonstrating your intention to be available to connect and your loving response that just came very spontaneously. And it didn't come from you. Hero move.
correct.
Heroes help without being asked. And you did not. You were just full of your loving presence. And she got that. And so she came and flocked to you.
Interestingly, maybe even I was feeling my feelings. Like I wasn't sobbing, but I was definitely touched, and I was in it. I was like you described earlier. I was feeling my feelings,
Yes.
all of
And I
them.
consider that because we talk about our podcast being Be, Play, Love, is that your love is being in the same space with something
Mm.
and being in the same space with your feelings and letting yourself interact with them is a loving act. And I'm sure she felt that directly. And that's just such a great thing to celebrate that in the midst of a drama, of an emergency, that you were a source of connection.
Nice. That's really nice. So then I come home literally minutes later and I see all this that's so beautiful and I'm inspired and I'm moved and as I said, a little bit, not guilty, but I'm a little bit like, I don't know where to put. Should I not feel such? Like I had a moment.
Yes.
What I decided to do, I decided to go in the yard and sit in nature and allow myself to see the beauty and so I was kind of almost looping with nature as we talk. Maybe we can talk about looping for a second. We
Yes.
haven't talked about that in a while. So what was I doing? Because I know how to do it, but I don't know that I know how to talk about it.
Yes. Well, what I hear was that you let yourself be in the midst of the beauty that you had helped co-create and that you were giving your attention to that and receiving that attention through your senses, through sitting on the rock, through feeling the warmth, looking and seeing and hearing the sound. So you were surrounding yourself with an experience of being in the same place with. And your looping was looping to nature and then looping, I'm guessing, to your experience, to here's what I noticed, and you were sort of reviewing, but you were reviewing from giving your attention to what you still noticed about what you had experienced. So, my sense is that looping, I was just talking about this with some people, that the essence of looping is being able to shift your attention by choice.
Mm.
So what you were describing at the beginning there, where people were not able to shift their attention, they got captured by their fear.
Yes.
And what I'm hearing is that you presenced through all of the different, through your breathing and moving and your intention and your curiosity, and your willingness to be with. So one of the things I was just occurring to me the other day is that when we say be, it's really being. And it's being with. And then what I hear is that you went with. So it's not just being with and trying to make everything freeze, it's going with. And looping allows you to go with and then to return and be with yourself and go with what's happening and give your attention to it, which is one of the biggest gifts that we can give, is that I'm actually here and I'm giving my attention to what's happening. So that generosity of yours that you've been was part of your essence, but also you've been practicing, like taking it to pickleball. Can we take, looping to pickleball? Absolutely. And so that, that's my sense of that you in your yard were letting yourself receive, which is also very difficult for heroes. Heroes don't let themselves receive. It's all giving, giving, giving. So that way of looping is that you're giving to yourself, you're letting nature give to you, and you're expanding your presence so that you can include all these opposites.
Wow. It's funny when you say, can we loop on pickleball courts? I'm reminded of the very first time you taught me about looping 20 years ago, I want to say, and you had invited me to this class, and there was this dog. Do you remember Porter?
Porter
was being trained for this as a service dog, right?
Yes.
For this young girl who had some condition where he needed to plop on people, like he would put his body on you.
Yes.
I remember being in your class, and I was in the middle of, I decided to be in a divorce as I was there. And so I would have these waves of sadness. Porter, over there, sleeping, would get up and plop me. Like, he knew. And the first time I was like, well, that's kind of a coincidence. And then every time I'd feel sad, this little thing would, not little, actually, he's a big dog, but he would just come over and plop me. And I remember saying out loud, he's looping with me. He's looping.
Yes.
Like he was aware. Talk about something that's so organic and natural that dogs can do it without us teaching them. That's what they do.
Yes. We can learn from them, certainly,
Yes.
for sure. And I think cats do this as well.
Oh, yeah.
Cats are aware of, our former cat, we had a wonderful, wonderful cat. Lucy was a Persian Himalayan, an absolutely gorgeous cat. And we would be doing a therapy session, counseling or coaching session. And the person would be in distress, and in the door would come Lucy.
Yeah.
And she'd come and hang right next to them, or just, put her body right next to them until they had moved the flow of the feelings. And then off she'd go again. She's my work is done.
My work is done. I've been used, the good kind. Well, which that reminds me, two things. One is I was knowing what Gay has gone through with his body recently and healing and doing all this therapy to come back with, solid health. I know the cats were very helpful. Like you were telling me, the cats just came and laid on him.
Well, they were on duty. One would get on and lay on his leg. So Gay is just, recently, a couple of months ago, completed his 4th, and we're hoping final surgery. So that's a bunch of surgery.
That's a lot.
In a year and a half. And so when he get home, one of the cats would get on his leg, literally stretch out between his legs so that she would be, supporting him. And then she'd get off and the other one would get on.
Yeah.
And they would just do that. And so now I know he's getting better because they're off doing other things now.
Yes, their attention is on something else.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. So years and years ago, talking about this, I was dating someone who had a boat. And my only experience of being on a boat was throwing up. That's all I know of being on a boat. So looking at the ocean, throwing. That's pretty much it.
It's a great association.
I get major seasickness, the whole thing, and vertigo, the whole thing. It is just horrible. But at the time, it was mid-20s, early 20s. I'm thinking, I was very much into I'm going to brave I'm going to push myself through difficult things and jump up, off of planes, and I could do all sorts of things. And so since the guy I was dating had a boat, I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to brave that. I'm going to go on the boat. And of course, I pick from the south of France to Corsica, which is a 3-day,
Lord.
on a boat. Almost kind of like I did it like I'm not going to be like if I do an hour and I come back, it's not really braving, right? That's like just so 3 days. Well, there was another couple on the boat who had a husky. You know, the beautiful dogs with the blue eyes?
Oh, yes.
Beautiful husky. So as expected, I'm at the bottom of the boat and I'm throwing up my toes. I'm so sick. The entire time. And I lost like 7 pounds, and that part was funny. Anyway, at some point I'm so sick and I look up and here's the dog like sitting there and his paws and just like tapping me. It's like tapping my hand, kind of like, you okay? We got to be okay.
He was doing tapping with you.
He was tapping. And so I would be I was still incredibly sick, but the love, every time I would open my eyes and these big blue eyes of this dog were just like tapping me. And of an animal, that was probably my first connection so deeply to animals, because at some point they called me up on the boat and they were like, you have to come see this. And I'm literally like, I'm crawling out of this thing. I'm so sick. Which is very romantic, but the guy I was dating, thank you very much. Poor guy. But now there are dolphins surrounding the boat. You know how they float with you? And
yes. I've swum with them.
But here's the crazy part. I was in the front so I made myself get to I was like overcome. Like, come on, let's go be with the dolphins, which by the way helped, of course, because now I'm not in my internal.
Well, you were shifting your awareness for one thing. You were
to the dolphins.
Out to the dolphins.
Yes. Wow, that's interesting. I didn't even catch that one. So I'm walking to the front of the boat, walking being a big word. I'm definitely crawling is more it. And I get to the front of the boat and there they are swimming with me. It totally feels like they're there for me. But here's the crazy part. Every 5 minutes, someone would come over, they would disappear. And then someone would leave, that person would leave, and they would come back. Like they were there for me. They were there to celebrate that I had overcome my fear. And it was almost like thoughts of, I don't know what, seasickness. We're like, okay, we're going to love you and we're going to give you something. And to this day, do I remember being sick? A little bit. But really what I remember were those dolphins and this husky.
I love that. And what I'm getting is a sort of an opportunity, a lesson for me and for others is the venturing out into the unknown, beyond the limits of what you think you're capable of. And it reminds me of going back to the Viktor Frankl quote that I really love, paraphrasing just the first part of it, is between stimulus and response, there's a space. And most people don't really experience a space. So like on the pickleball incident, where the man collapses, most people don't have any space to either feel or breathe or be with themselves or take a moment to see what's the possibility here, what's the opening that I could take. And my sense is that what you did on the boat was to step into, there was just a little opening, like come up and see the dolphins, which was so different. No, I'm going to be down in here and feeling miserable. But despite the fact that you were feeling miserable, you moved in the direction of some new possibility. And that's what you remember.
And was met with, must have been sort of a miracle. I mean,
you were met with magic.
Yeah.
And I think that's possible for all of us.
That's really beautiful. And I think I'm remembering actually the father of the husky, the owner, whatever, the person who brought the husky, was not a very nice guy. And he was a little bit like, you can't be that sick. Like nobody gets that sick.
You can't possibly be this sick, so stop it.
All right. Well, let me just come up and throw up on you, whatever. And so, but I remember this moment where I went, and I was definitely not as trained in my communication styles that I might be now. And I said something, it was pretty smart. I said, what are you afraid of? And he said, horses. And I said, well, do I find you on horses often? And he was like, never. And I was like, oh, so you don't put yourself in a situation. I knew this was going to be difficult, and I did it anyway. So you don't put yourself in a situation that's difficult. Therefore, you don't feel what I'm feeling right now, which is a combination of being really vulnerable and
Yeah.
allowing other people to help. And this whole thing was actually really it's funny how that memory has stayed with me a lot, like often, like it has a lot of wisdom in it.
Yeah. So it sounds like there are many, many little nuggets
Layers.
little treasures to garnish from there. And also, I was getting that you were doing a kind of
A little bit. And I'm like, dude, I ride horses all the time. That does not scare
yeah.
me. No. The dog was so much nicer. I was like, how did this nice dog be with a not nice guy?
Well, he probably got a real vacation being with you.
Oh, yes. Yes, exactly. So to come back to this like roller coaster of feelings,
Yes.
do you think so? I feel like the body, I mean, I feel like that's what you would take us actually of this.
Mhm.
The body is the anchor, yes? Like the
Yes.
beating and the experience in my chest and feeling what was happening in my gut was probably what I was doing.
Well, it sounds very much like what you were doing. And what I have found with feelings is giving our attention to them and then going with them. Because mostly people give attention to like, stop it, or squash it or
Controlling it. Yeah.
controlling it, making it go away. But if you give your attention to what's swirling in you, and it will be, but most people would be like, pounce on it and make it stop moving. But if you land on it and you take a ride with it,
Uh-huh.
just as if you were, getting on a boat on one of those, it just takes you on the water slides. If you go with it, I've never found people get stuck in the feelings. It always opens up it into something, some new possibility, some learning, some new expansion. And then the feelings are they're like a waterfall, or a
It just
rainstorm.
happened. It just happened.
It just happens. And if you go with it, then what you get on the other end of that is more aliveness, more ability to just feel the flow of aliveness in you, and also more confidence that you can be with, big stuff, big feelings, big, unexpected, big feelings. And so my sense is it's really simple. It's simply being with and going with feelings.
And trusting.
We're not trained
Wow.
how to do that. In fact, we're trained to do the opposite.
The opposite.
Uh-oh. Stop it.
Wow. As we closing this this particular episode, I'm wondering, do you think one can practice that? Like, is there such a thing as like trying to do it on smaller feelings so that when comes, I think that's what I've done. I feel like I've practiced on smaller feelings. And so when a big wave comes, it's just more like, okay, it's just a bigger wave. It's just a bigger wave. Just be with it.
Yeah. And I often will I love it that it's a wave, because it actually is a wave. That's the way I think I've experienced it coming through. And so I'm thinking about all of the times that I practiced body surfing with little waves so that I could catch a big wave.
You're talking literally.
And literally.
You're talking literally body.
Literally, yeah. And this was before boogie boards. I'm old enough that pre-boogie boards, I did body surfing. So I really learned how to move with the wave. And my sense is that one way that you can practice that is by simply, watching 5 or 10 minutes of the news.
Oh,
and then but no more than that. And then letting yourself notice, where is that affecting you? What are you noticing? What kinds of sensations are you noticing? And how do they want to move in you?
I love that. Oh, what a good invitation, especially in the next few months. I think we're going to have a good amount of color.
Yes, we're going to have plenty of practice with big and little waves.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I love you. This was so helpful. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad. And one of the things I so appreciate about collaborating with you is that the sparking, that we spark each other. And so we're here and then we're going with. We're just demonstrating.
We're doing it together. That's exactly right. We're going with exactly right. Wow. I love that. Oh, this was fun. I'm going to go practice more. This was fun. Thank you.
Thank you.